In the quiet town of Willow Spring, the local community college was known more for its warm, inclusive spirit than academic prestige. One of its most beloved offerings was the community choir, an eclectic mix of students, retirees, and music, lovers of all ages who gathered twice a week to rehearse under the guidance of Mr. Langford, a dedicated and exacting music teacher with a lifelong passion for classical vocal performance. Mr. Langford took the choir seriously, perhaps more seriously than some of the members themselves. A stickler for precision and form, he believed that even an amateur group could strive toward professional excellence. He often spoke of music as the soul's truth, wrapped in discipline. While admired for his knowledge, his rigid expectations and snobbish tendencies sometimes rubbed people the wrong way. As the group prepared for their upcoming winter recital, Langford surprised the class by selecting a notoriously difficult opera, aria, Vici d'arte from Tosca, as the centerpiece. The piece was stunning and emotionally charged, requiring not only technical mastery but deep emotional resonance. It was a risky choice for a community choir, but Mr. Langford was convinced that with enough coaching, someone could rise to the challenge. Among the newcomers to the choir was Ella Green, a woman in her late 30s who had just moved to Willow Spring. She had signed up quietly, registering late and attending rehearsals with a gentle, almost invisible presence. Ella wore plain clothes and spoke little. Her soft, pleasant speaking voice didn't immediately suggest anything remarkable. When asked about her musical background, she simply said, "I've always loved singing but never had any real training." To Mr. Langford, she seemed like a sweet but unremarkable addition. He didn't expect much from her, and neither did the other choir members, many of whom saw her as shy and perhaps a little out of her depth. After introducing the aria to the class, Mr. Langford asked for volunteers to take on the solo. A long silence followed. Most knew their limitations and wouldn't dare try. Few who might have tried hesitated, intimidated by the technical difficulty and the emotional weight of the piece. Finally, almost as an afterthought, Mr. Langford turned to Ella and asked, "Would you like to give it a try? No pressure. It's just an exercise." His tone was light, maybe even a little patronizing, assuming she wouldn't get far. Ella blinked, surprised by the question. There was a pause, and then, quietly, but clearly, she said, "I'll try." The room gave a few skeptical chuckles. One student whispered, "She's brave," with a smile that suggested the opposite. Mr. Langford handed her the sheet music and told her to prepare a short section for next class, more as a learning tool than a real audition. He didn't expect anything exceptional. What no one in that room knew, not Mr. Langford, not the students, not even the curious woman seated near the back, was that Ella Green had once graced the stages of the world's grandest opera houses. But here, in this small town, she was just a simple woman trying to blend in, or so it seemed. The announcement of the opera solo rippled through the choir group like a sudden gust of cold wind. Mr. Langford's choice, a notoriously difficult aria from Tosca, was daunting even for experienced singers. The piece demanded not only flawless vocal technique but emotional depth and stamina, something the community choir members had never attempted before. As the weeks passed, Mr. Langford encouraged his students to try the solo, hoping someone might step up. But no one did. The rehearsals became filled with whispered doubts and visible nervousness. The ambitious aria felt like a mountain too steep to climb. Several members quietly admitted to each other that they would never be able to pull it off. The day came when Mr. Langford, with an almost casual tone, suggested to the class that Ella Green try the solo. He meant it as a simple suggestion, perhaps a way to give her some experience singing a challenging piece. Maybe he thought she would fumble and quietly withdraw, saving everyone from embarrassment. He didn't expect her to say yes. Ella's quiet acceptance surprised the group. Some students exchanged glances, some smiling softly as if to say, "Good luck, you'll need it." The choir room buzzed with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. How could this unassuming woman, who barely spoke in rehearsals, possibly handle a complex opera solo? She seemed so ordinary, so ordinary that many assumed she lacked the training or experience to succeed. Mr. Langford handed her the sheet music and said with a slightly raised eyebrow, "Take your time, practice the first section, and we'll hear you next week." His tone was polite but carried an unmistakable undertone of doubt. Over the next days, Ella took the music home. She studied the notes carefully, the markings on the page, the dramatic crescendos and subtle pauses. But it wasn't just the sheet music she relied on. When alone, she would close her eyes and imagine herself back on a grand stage, feeling the weight of an audience's gaze, the bright lights, the rush of adrenaline. Unknown to her classmates, Ella's talent was not new. The haunting fragments of the aria she sang during practice sessions already began to catch the attention of some students in passing hallways. Some whispered about a mysterious voice echoing through the corridors, soft but powerful, vulnerable but commanding. Still, no one dared to challenge Mr. Langford's belief that she was simply an earnest beginner. Meanwhile, Mr. Langford continued to prepare the group, his mind occupied with the upcoming recital and the uncertainty of the solo. His pride as a teacher made it hard for him to admit how difficult the aria really was for the choir, and he worried that none of his students would be able to meet his expectations. As rehearsal day for Ella's solo approached, the tension in the choir room thickened. The group awaited her performance with a mix of curiosity, hope, and barely concealed doubt. Most were certain she would falter, reinforcing their own insecurities about the piece. What they didn't know was that Ella's voice held a secret, a well-hidden gift that could shatter their assumptions and change everything they thought they knew about their quiet classmate. In the days following Mr. Langford's unexpected request for Ella to tackle the challenging opera solo, a subtle but growing sense of intrigue began to weave through the choir. Ella, usually quiet and unassuming, had become the focal point of whispered conversations and curious glances. The students and even some faculty who passed near the practice rooms started noticing something unusual. Late one afternoon, as the choir was disbanding and the campus quieted down, a few students lingered near the music building. From behind, the closed door of an empty practice room, they heard it, fragments of a voice so rich, so pure, and so hauntingly beautiful that it stopped them in their tracks. It was the aria they'd been rehearsing, but sung with an astonishing depth and power none of them expected from Ella. "Did you hear that?" one whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. "Who was singing? It sounded like someone from the opera." Another said, incredulous. Rumors began to swirl like wildfire. Some speculated that Ella had professional training she wasn't sharing. Others wondered if she was hiding a past connected to the opera world, a world so distant from their small college town. Yet no one dared ask her directly, partly out of respect and partly out of uncertainty about how she would respond. Meanwhile, Mr. Langford remained skeptical, unwilling to let his guard down. He attributed the rumors to wishful thinking and imagined that perhaps the acoustics of the practice rooms were playing tricks on ears unaccustomed to such sounds. To him, Ella was still a beginner who had accepted a challenge far beyond her skill level. His pride as a teacher and his strict standards made it difficult for him to believe that this humble newcomer could be anything extraordinary. Behind the scenes, Ella was carrying her own complex emotions. The invitation to sing the solo had stirred memories she had long buried. She remembered the bright chandeliers of European opera houses, the roaring applause of thousands, and the intense pressure of performing on the world's grandest stages. But she also remembered the burnout, the heartbreak, and the choice to leave it all behind. Her life in Willow Spring was a fresh start, a place to be anonymous, to sing simply for the love of music, not for fame or recognition. That's why she kept her past hidden, content to let people see only the modest woman she was now. Yet as she rehearsed the aria in solitude, her voice soared effortlessly through the notes, displaying a mastery and emotion that spoke of years of rigorous training and experience. It was impossible to deny the depth of her talent. The tension between who she was and who she had become grew stronger. Ella knew that soon, the time to reveal the truth would come, whether she wanted it to or not. One evening, a longtime choir member named Sophie caught a glimpse of Ella humming the aria quietly as she left the practice room. Sophie, who had a modest background in classical music, was struck by the flawless control and expression in Ella's voice. Gathering courage, she approached Ella and asked, "Have you ever performed professionally?" Ella paused, her eyes flickering with a mixture of nostalgia and caution, but said nothing. That moment marked a subtle shift in the choir's dynamic. The mystery surrounding Ella deepened, and an unspoken anticipation settled over the group. What no one realized yet was that Ella's true identity was about to shake the foundation of their small choir and Mr. Langford's carefully controlled world. The day of Ella's first solo performance in front of the choir arrived with a mixture of anticipation, doubt, and quiet excitement. The rehearsal room, usually filled with warm chatter and light-hearted teasing, was now charged with a palpable tension. Everyone was eager and some secretly anxious to hear what this simple, quiet woman could really do with the famously difficult opera aria. Mr. Langford, ever the perfectionist, sat at the piano with a skeptical yet hopeful expression. He had prepared meticulously for the recital, but deep down, he wasn't convinced that anyone, especially Ella, could meet the aria's demanding technical and emotional requirements. Still, his pride wouldn't allow him to openly doubt her in front of the group. Ella stood near the music stand, her posture calm but poised. Her hands lightly clutched the sheet music, but her eyes were focused and serene. There was no visible nervousness, only a quiet confidence that puzzled those watching. The choir fell silent as she lifted her gaze and took a slow, deliberate breath. Then, as the piano began to play the opening notes, Ella's voice rose. It was a voice that seemed to fill every corner of the room, yet carried an intimate, heartfelt quality that made every listener lean in closer. Her tone was rich and velvety, effortlessly moving through the aria's complex passages with flawless precision. She executed the demanding runs and sustained notes with a control and power that left no doubt about her technical mastery. But it wasn't just technique. What captivated the choir, and especially Mr. Langford, was the emotion in her singing. Each phrase was imbued with deep feeling, conveying the character's despair, hope, and passionate plea with raw authenticity. Her voice seemed to tell a story beyond the notes, reaching into the hearts of everyone listening. As Ella sang, the room transformed. The skeptical whispers and doubtful glances vanished, replaced by awe and respect. Even the most hardened choir members found themselves caught up in the beauty and intensity of the moment. Mr. Langford sat frozen, his pride giving way to shock and admiration. For the first time, he saw Ella not as a timid newcomer, but as a true artist. When the final note faded, a hush fell over the room, a silence heavy with disbelief. Then, as if waking from a spell, the choir erupted into spontaneous applause. Some stood clapping with genuine enthusiasm. Others whispered, "Incredible. I had no idea." Mr. Langford struggled to find words. The man who had so confidently dismissed Ella's potential was now humbled. He approached her, eyes wide. "With astonishment and newfound respect, Ella," he said softly. "That was beyond anything I imagined. How have you been hiding this?" Ella smiled gently, her calm demeanor unchanged. "I've sung before," she said simply, "but this is a new beginning for me." The moment marked a turning point. Ella's true talent was no longer a secret or a rumor. It was undeniable. The choir now looked to her with admiration and curiosity, eager to learn from her and inspired by her artistry. Yet beneath the applause and praise, Ella knew the biggest revelation was yet to come. The story of her past, the life she left behind, and the reason she chose to come here, to this small town, to start anew. As the rehearsal ended, the air was thick with possibility. What had started as a simple challenge had grown into something far more profound, an awakening of both the choir's potential and Ella's own journey. Mr. Langford, once skeptical and aloof, now found himself eager to understand and support the woman who had stunned them all. The stage was set for a new chapter, not just in the choir's story but in Ella's life. After the stunning performance that left the choir and Mr. Langford speechless, the classroom slowly emptied. Most students were buzzing with excitement, still processing the beauty and power of Ella's voice. But Mr. Langford remained behind, his mind racing. He was no stranger to exceptional talent, but what he had just witnessed was beyond anything he'd expected from this quiet woman. His pride as a teacher was shaken, and curiosity gnawed at him. Gathering his courage, Mr. Langford approached Ella as she packed away her music sheets. "Ella," he began hesitantly, "I have to ask, who are you really? That performance, it wasn't just talent, it was artistry. You have experience that goes far beyond this choir." Ella looked up, her calm eyes meeting his. For a moment, she said nothing, as if weighing whether to trust him. Then, with a gentle sigh, she began to share her story, one that had remained hidden for years. "I wasn't always just Ella Green," she said softly. "My real name is Elena Grimaldi. I was once an opera star." The revelation stunned Mr. Langford. He leaned forward, eager to hear more. Elena explained how she had been born into a family that nurtured her voice from a young age. Trained in prestigious conservatories, she had quickly risen through the ranks of the opera world, performing in some of the most renowned opera houses across Europe and the Americas. Her voice had been celebrated for its range, emotion, and technical perfection. Critics hailed her as one of the finest sopranos of her generation. But with fame came pressure. The demanding schedule, the endless travel, and the constant scrutiny took a toll. Behind the dazzling performances was a woman growing increasingly exhausted and isolated. Then came a personal tragedy. A loss so profound it shattered her spirit and forced her to reconsider everything. "I needed to disappear," Elena said quietly. "I wanted a life where I could just be myself, without the weight of expectations or the glare of the spotlight. That's why I came here to this small town to start over as Ella Green, a simple woman who just loves to sing." Mr. Langford listened, his earlier skepticism replaced by respect and empathy. He realized how much courage it must have taken for her to step into the classroom and perform that aria, exposing a part of herself she'd worked so hard to keep hidden. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" he asked gently. "I wasn't ready," she replied. "This choir, this community, it's been a refuge. I wanted to be seen as a person, not just a star. But now I feel that maybe it's time to share my story." As the truth unfolded, the complex layers of Elena's identity came into focus. She was not only a gifted artist, but also a woman seeking peace, healing, and connection. Mr. Langford felt a shift within himself. His role as a teacher was no longer just to push for technical excellence, but to support someone whose journey transcended music. Later that day, word of Elena's true identity quietly spread among the choir members. Instead of envy or disbelief, it inspired admiration. They saw her not just as a prodigy, but as someone who had overcome immense challenges and chosen humility over fame. Elena's revelation marked a turning point for the choir and for Mr. Langford. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one where talent and humanity intertwined, and where music could be a bridge between past wounds and future hopes. Following the revelation of her true identity, Elena Grimaldi, known to everyone as Ella Green, found herself at the center of the community choir's attention, but in a way that was unexpected. The choir members no longer saw her as just a shy newcomer. They recognized her as a genuine artist who had chosen humility and simplicity over the glamour of the opera stage. This shift transformed not only their perception of her, but the entire atmosphere within the group. Mr. Langford, whose pride as a teacher had been challenged and reshaped by the experience, felt a profound change in his approach. No longer could he see Ella merely as a student or an amateur. She was a mentor and an inspiration. He invited her to take on a larger role in the choir, co-leading rehearsals and helping to guide the other singers, many of whom were now eager to learn from her. At first, Ella was hesitant. She had come to Willow Spring seeking a quiet life, far from the pressure and limelight. Yet she realized that sharing her expertise was a way to give back, to nurture the love of music in others, without the need for fame or grandeur. It was a new kind of fulfillment. The winter recital approached and excitement buzzed throughout the town. This year's program was transformed by Ella's presence, with the choir tackling more ambitious pieces and performing with newfound confidence. Mr. Langford and Ella worked side by side, blending his passion for discipline with her warmth and artistry. When the night of the recital arrived, the small community hall was filled with eager audience members, family, friends, and neighbors. The choir took the stage, their voices melding in harmony. When it came time for Ella's solo, she stepped forward with quiet grace. As her voice soared through the familiar aria, the room fell into a reverent silence. The performance was not just a demonstration of technical mastery, it was a celebration of resilience, transformation, and the power of music to heal and connect. Her voice carried the weight of her journey, joy, sorrow, loss, and hope, all woven into the notes. When the final note faded, the audience erupted into applause. But instead of a star bowing to adulation, Ella simply smiled, her expression serene. She had found peace not in the spotlight but in belonging. Backstage, Mr. Langford clapped with genuine pride. "You've changed this choir," he said warmly, "and maybe even me." Ella nodded, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't known in years. The choir wasn't just a group of singers anymore. It was a community, a family. In the weeks that followed, Ella continued to teach and sing, embracing her new role with humility. She stayed true to her desire for a simple life, balancing her passion with the quiet joys of small-town living. The mystery that once surrounded her identity faded, replaced by genuine connection and mutual respect. Her story inspired others in Willow Spring to embrace their own hidden talents and dreams. The choir flourished, attracting new members eager to be part of something meaningful. Music became more than performance. It became a shared language of hope and healing. In the end, Ella's journey was not about reclaiming lost fame, but about finding herself anew through music, community, and the courage to be authentically seen. And in that discovery, she and the choir found a new beginning, one filled with promise, harmony, and song.